So as I stated with today's call, it is going to be about Schedule Optimizer. Just as a side note, I'm logging in as a full system administrator, and I'm also logging into a test database. So your systems goes a little bit faster than my test database, and your user ID may not allow for all the functions that I have. With your normal day-to-day functions, your security ID is going to be set solely with that system ID that you log in with. So always make sure never to share that user ID or password, because it's going to give you access to certain levels of the facility as it pertains to department or facility level itself. Also, what can you see off of those employees and what can you actually do off of those employees? That may be schedule changes, time card changes, maybe even looking at certain things inside of the employee profile. So always make sure that you do not share user ID and password. When you log in, it is a simple website. It's going to be smartlinks6.com. That's all it's going to be for you to log in. The system is mobile friendly. There's not an app. It is just mobile friendly as it pertains to administration purpose. So if you have an Android or an Apple device or a Google device, you can go into your browser, Safari, whatever it may be, and just log in smartlinks6.com. Not all functions are mobile friendly though. So if you happen to try this out once you go live with the system, and you happen to go in there and you notice you've only got 7 or 8 menus compared to 9 or 10, it's because those are the only ones that are mobile friendly. The system is intuitive enough to know which ones are supposed to be seen on mobile and which ones are not. But with the website, user ID and password, you just select the login button and it will introduce you with a primary screen, which is the initial dashboard of the SmartLink system. Now this initial dashboard, we're going to talk about the navigation first, and then we're going to talk about what we see on the main screen. Navigation in the upper right-hand corner will allow you to physically log out of the screen. There is a 20-minute log out window. 15 minutes after inactivity, it will give you a 5-minute timer countdown, and then you have at the 20-minute mark, it will physically log you out of the system. Now, with that being said, I know that some of you are sharing computers right now. You may happen to be in an area with high traffic or a little bit of a communal area. So please, if you're not using the system, just know that you do have an option to log out. Most browsers will log you out if you hit the X button, but just for safety's sake, always hit the logout function in the upper right-hand corner. Below that, you'll have a date and time at the facility at which you're referencing, which leads us to the organization panel. Now, with the organization panel, it usually is broken into 3 levels. We have seen multiple levels depending on budget structure, but it usually is broken into 3 levels. You'll have your corporate umbrella. Within the corporate umbrella, you'll be able to see the facilities, and within the facilities, you'll be able to see the departments. Now, there is one small catch. Some of you may not even have access to a facility level. You may have access only to a nursing department, or you just have access to just one facility and its departments. So just make sure that when you do go in, you notice the access that you do have, make sure it is correct, and you will go to your system administrators internally for any adjustments of security access that you may or may not need. Now, I am going to stay within my nursing department today, but just know if you are on facility level, you get an encompassed total of everything on the facility level, and those on the corporate umbrella can't actually see everything. So a little bit of fear of Big Brother. Someone could always be watching you, so as long as you do your part on the lower levels, those at the upper levels probably are just going to look at it for reporting purpose, and other than that, all is going to be okay with the world. Now on the left-hand side, you'll notice there's 3 white bars. With those 3 white bars, you can click that and it will open up your menus for all applications that you have access to. Once again, security rights may allow you not to have to see half of these things, but just in case, you will see all the applications. You don't technically have to have those slide bars open to utilize the menus. You can just select on the icons and it will open those menus up for you. But if you want to see them in full detail, it'll show your login. Once again, another organization panel. And then from there, all of the main menus with their submenus and their subsets that you can go into to go to each application. So if you're in scheduling and you happen to have access into time and attendance and you want to bounce right into review time cards, you can go from scheduling straight to direct to time cards if you want to. Solely up to you, but just know that you do have that functionality in the system. As a reminder, if you are on mobile, it will only show you the mobile menus, not all of the ones that are seen on a PC or computer menu. Now from here, the initial screen or the initial dashboard, it's going to give you highlighted information about what's going on in the system as well as shortcuts to get to those pieces of the system. Anything that's listed as a dashboard, it's just going to be a highlighted view telling you what's going on in the background. So it's just going to give you some systematic overview and say, hey, this is what's happening Do you want to handle this right now, or are you going to have time to come back and handle it later? Now, with each one of these, you'll notice there's a big orange square. Those technically are going to be shortcuts to go into those listed applications. Now, I could just go to the menus on the left-hand side if I wish, but I could click on one of those big orange squares. It will take me directly into the menus as well. Now, with scheduling, you'll have 3 highlighted sections: open shift request, employee projected overtime, and PTO request. Now, with PTO request, very self-explanatory. Most people understand this function. Your employees will have the function to be able to log into an application called Employee Self-Service. It is just a website for them, but eventually will be a mobile app down the road probably. But they can go in, say, hey, I'd like to have this day off. They put that request through here. It will go to their approved supervisor. That approved supervisor will be able to process that request at the same time, possibly being able to find a replacement if you wish at that time. You don't have to find a replacement, but you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone if you want to, but it will at least give you an indicator of how many PTO requests are currently sitting out there in the system. Next is going to be employee projected overtime. That's going to be looking at a report that we're going to look at just a little bit called projected hours. It essentially is looking at what you guys has determined as overtime on a weekly level, and then from there, it will go ahead and automatically report anybody that's probably going to go into overtime by the end of the week. What have they been scheduled for? What's sitting on the time card right now? Add those 2 up, and then that's going to give you that total there. Last but not least, open shift request. You guys are going to have your current ideal or par schedules flow over here to this side of the system. So essentially what you've had built as a staffing model that you're currently using in the system, those will come over here, be seen, and then from there, you will just schedule as normal. You'll be able to post that schedule to your staff. They can see that in employee self-service as well. And then they could actually fulfill those openings for you. So they could come in and see where those openings are and say, hey, I'd like to pick that up. And then you can process those requests through the system as well. So open shift request, employee projected overtime, PTO request. Selecting on either one of those icons, they will actually take you directly into that piece of the module for review, adjustment, or processing of any of those options. So just remember, click on it. It will take you into the system. Almost everything has a shortcut link to it. Now, with that being said, for this first dashboard screen, any questions from anybody? All right, silence is golden. We will go on to the next one. So the next menu that we're going to take a look at is going to be over on the left-hand side. You'll notice the calendar is listed as Schedule Optimizer. If I open that up, you can see Schedule Optimizer. There is a dashboard section, and then there is a main console for scheduling. Now the console, once again, console or dashboard, it's just going to give you a highlighted view about what you actually see in the system. What are you doing in the background on the main master schedule? What are you doing in that background, and how is it going to come forward to me? This screen right here is going to be looked at on a daily or weekly basis. You can look at either one that you wish, pick the date or date range, and then from there, you'll have a breakdown of each one of those positions that you currently have. Now, right now in version 5, when you go into department level, everything's broken down by position. Big complaint that our clients had was that I like to group this a certain way. So now you can see things still on position level, but you could group them if you want to by unit or by shift group. So however you're scheduling per unit, you'll see your units, and then your shift groups, and then positions, or you see shift group first of day, evening, and night, your units, and then your positions out there. But if we leave it as the base, no grouping, it does stick with the primary position breakdown. Now, the numbers that we're referencing off these charts, we're looking at total hours right off the bat. But if you need to see your PPD levels, you can flip that to be PPD, and it will give you your PPD calculations if you need them. From there, because this is looking at your ideal schedule or that staffing model or what you guys know as your PAR setup, it's looking at all those numbers. There is going to be a little bit of a buffer, a 10% buffer fluctuation across the board. Now from here, as we're looking at each one of these donut charts, I do have this broken down to a weekly level. So here we're looking at a solid week. Today is Monday, the 11th, and we'll actually notice that I'm looking at my CNAs. I've scheduled 97.5 hours for my CNAs today. That's what that first color number is going to be for you, that big bold number. That's going to be the 97.5 that I scheduled as a scheduler. Next to that is going to be my ideal hour. Essentially, what's been built as a staffing model for me? What's that par level that's been set up in the background to say this is what we would like for you to schedule to? And then from there, in the middle of the donut chart, you'll actually notice what the difference is. So on every single day, it gives me what did I do as it pertains to scheduling, what is that staffing model looking for, and then what's my variance, which is in the middle. Now, because of those limits that we had set up of the 10%, you would have noticed that the 10% blue was the lower portion, the 10% red was the upper portion. So if I am blue, that technically means I've dropped well below 10% of what that ideal was. If I'm red, I've gone above 10%. If I'm in the yellow, some of you are already starting to catch on, that's going to be right in the middle. It's going to tell me I'm within maybe 2 or 3%, but I haven't fluctuated too much to cause too much concern. And then right below, you'll actually see my DON. I've got a perfect on that DON on Sunday. I'm a 0-0, which means it was a perfect match. So if you think about these like traffic signals, green, you're good to go. Yellow, you might need to slow down and just take a look at the numbers, but you're probably going to be just fine. Red, you might want to stop to try to figure out why you've overstaffed. And then blue, it's getting pretty cold. You probably want to put some bodies in the building. That is essentially the easiest way to remember those 4 colors. So it will show you where your variances are. They are color coded for you for quick reference. I am looking at full weeks, but if you look at this on a per day basis, it's very, very simple to look at because it's just one circle for that one given position on that one given day. Now you will notice that when we are looking at each one of those circles, some of it may be hard to see on some of these computers, so I'm going to highlight. There's going to be an option. The first option is messages. You guys don't worry about that right now. That will come probably in due time, but that's where your staff can actually send messages back into the system, and you'll see those messages available to you. The second is going to be overtime. That's going to flag anybody that's going to be going into overtime on that given day. So, of course, by tomorrow, I'll have 2 people that are projected to go into overtime by tomorrow. So I may need to go in and adjust the schedule. Being that I'm 22 hours over scheduled, I might just tell those 2 people not to come in. So that's how you can easily, just by looking at some numbers, say, hey, I probably need to make a couple of quick adjustments. Next is going to be your PTO request. Second screen that we've looked at, second option to maintain those PTO requests. And then last but not least, do you have anybody that's coming in late? Most of you probably have a grace period or a rounding window of 5, 6, or 7 minutes at your time clocks. So if that's the case, it's looking beyond that rule. If I'm supposed to be there at 6 and I clock in at 6:06, right now it probably rounds you guys back to 6 o'clock. If I clock in at 6:09, that probably tells me I'm going to be late. So anybody that is fully, truly considered late to all of your rules, that's going to flag them automatically up in front. So if you need to do any occurrences or write-ups, you can easily calculate those if you need to. Now, selecting on that donut chart will take me to a screen called Daily Unit Assignment. I'm going to show you guys that screen in just a little bit, and I will remind you when we get to that screen, but just clicking directly on this donut, I can go into that one given day's schedule and then go in there and make a couple of adjustments as it pertains to staff I have on that given day. Super simple screen. It's going to be great usage for you once you get comfortable with it. Do you have to use this screen right off the bat, right when you go live? No, you don't have to. It is just a dashboard once again. So anything listed as console or dashboard, they do the same function. It's highlighted information with shortcuts to fix that information if you need to. But do you have to use this right off the bat on day one? You don't, but it's going to be a great tool. So I do recommend getting comfortable with this screen because it's going to make your jobs a lot easier as it pertains to scheduling and making sure you're staffed at the appropriate levels that you need to be staffed at. With that being said, before I bounce off of this screen, any questions about the scheduling console? Perfect. Next screen I'm going to go into, it's going to be pretty simple for you guys because you should be comfortable with this one. It's the operational dashboard. Right now, if you are using version 5 and you log into version 5 and you hit Schedule Optimizer, this is the first screen that you get in Schedule Optimizer version 5. The only thing different is the color scheme. Other than that, it is identical in every single form or function. You have the current day listed. From the current day, if you're on department level, you will have all of your positions listed below and then multiple columns. How many employees you have scheduled, how many hours you have scheduled. This right here in version 5 is listed as your PAR. So essentially, this is now going to be called ideal schedule or a staffing model for you. Difference of hours. From there, you're going to have all your information about your employees being absent. When your employee is marked with an absence code, it'll show you how many employees are absent, how many hours are to be considered absent. Because they were scheduled to be working, now that we've marked them with an absence code, we've got a number of hours we probably need to get replaced, which leads how many employees did we replace, and then how many hours did we not get replaced out of all of those employees. From there, you'll have some time and attendance information coming in, just like you do with version 5. You're going to have a list of how many employees you have punched in for the day. From there, if anybody's flagged as late, they'll be flagged under that column. How many employees you have scheduled that have not punched in, and then, of course, how many employees you have approaching overtime. Almost identical, once again, in every form or function, minus the fact that we've changed your word from par to ideal, and we've changed the color scheme on this, but almost the columns are almost in exact same order as well. So with that being said, any questions about your operational dashboard? And this screen is going to give you the same function that you currently have in version 5, where if you want to, you can select on the number, any number that you see, and it will still give you that list view of what's going on within that number that you've selected. So if it's how many employees you have scheduled, it'll still tell you the 13 employees with the department, where they're scheduled at, and their start and end of their shift. All right, perfect. Next screen that we're going to take a look at is going to be called projected hours. Now, this report is something that you currently get in version 5, but I do want to showcase it to you just so you know that it's still here. If you're in scheduling in version 5, it's under your data menu. But this screen is looked at on a work week basis. So whatever your work week is, Sunday to Saturday or Tuesday to Monday, whatever it may be, a breakdown of the organization, department, the employee's name, the position worked, their exempt status, and then 3 columns. The 3 columns are worked, scheduled, and then projected. Anything that is listed as worked or actual, that means it's hours coming from your time cards and time and attendance. Anything that's listed as scheduled, that's your expectation. Hasn't happened yet, but I'm expecting for these hours to happen because that's what I currently have on the schedule for them that they haven't worked yet. That then gives us a projected total. So if we actually look right here, this employee has 7.25 hours already worked, 37.5 still on the schedule, which leads us with 44.75 by the end of the week. What I probably could do if I had the option to, because I have enough staff, I probably could go to this employee's schedule and cut off a day at the end of the week. That would allow for this employee to still be kind of at a full-time level, but I could take a shift and give it to somebody else that may be working less hours at the bottom of this report. So you do have that option available if you need to do that. So with that being said, any questions about the projected hours report? Perfect. Next one that we're going to take a look at under scheduling and dashboards is your direct care hour report. Now, this report is identical to one that you're going to also see in time and attendance. So during the time and attendance session, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to skip right over it. But you will have the option of looking at a full calendar year. From there, a breakdown of your organization, all of your direct care positions listed, the days that they worked, and then 5 columns. How many hours you scheduled, how many came from time and attendance, your census numbers, your scheduled PPD, and then your actual PPD. So scheduled information is going to hit that census number to give you an expectation of PPD. Your actual hours are going to hit that census number to give you your actual PPD. So whether you're doing this for an internal or external audit, the information is going to be readily available to you. But you may notice that at the bottom, I've got multiple pages. I've got 10 plus pages here because I am looking at a full calendar year. First and foremost, always filter out your dates to make this report a little bit shorter. And then from there, any of the reports or screens that you go to that have this dark gray filter bar, you can select the header bar of that filter bar, and it will put it into ascending or descending order, depending on how many times you select it. And then from there, you can do order by column. So if you want one column ordered first and then second, and then below that, you could go in and then filter out your data set by just keying in the data, date, number, whatever you're looking for as it pertains to the filters. All of the filters do normal filtering function as it pertains to equal to, does not equal to, contain, greater than, less than, dependent on the fields that you're trying to pull. So please understand that you do have many, many options as it pertains to filtering the data that you're looking for. But first and foremost, to cut down any page length, always look at your date range and shorten up your date range if you can, if it's not needed for the report function. Any questions about your direct care hour report? Perfect. Well, with that being said, congratulations. You guys have made it through the first menus of the primary dashboards. Now, the next one that we're going to talk about is going to be your leave request. Now, with leave request, you're going to have the option of review leave request and then your PTO planner. In Schedule Optimizer right now for version 5, there is a palm tree up at the top. That is your PTO planner. Same exact screen that you get out of this PTO planner. It's going to give you the calendar year. It's going to list everybody's names within that department, all the weeks across the top, and then it's going to give you a number letting you know how many days that employee has off on that given week. Selecting on that intersecting week and employee, it will open up that week for you. If that employee is scheduled to work, it will have the days listed that they're scheduled with a little blue indicator. If there's a green indicator, that means that they could possibly work because of their rotation. From there, all you would have to do is select the code that's going to be applied, hit the OK button. Those absence codes go to the master schedule. Master schedule passes to time card. Time card gets processed appropriately. That function in version 5 is identical. Go into the little palm tree, have your paper request in front of you, put the codes on the specific days they're supposed to be working. Code processes through like normal. You also get report functionality off of this. So if you need to, there is a little cogwheel or a gear beside the year, and you can add in multiple columns for referencing. So if seniority date comes into play when people are asking for time off, if you want to make sure that a specific unit and shift is being covered during a certain time, just hit those columns, hit apply, and you will have those columns to utilize for filtering function. So if you're making sure that your piece unit and everybody that works at the 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., you just want to make sure you're not giving everybody on the week of Christmas the same shift off, because what's going to happen is the day of Christmas comes and you find out that nobody's working. And then you can't find a per diem or an agency employee to work for you because they're all with their families. So it puts you up the creek without a paddle. So it is good report functionality. If you put a PTO request just on the primary master schedule, if you go through the next function that I'm about to go through with leave request, and you do the automation portion, you still get the numbers show up over here. So at minimum, the screen's going to stay here for reportability, but you do have functionality off of the screen if you need to use it. Now the other leave request screen, which is the review leave request, this is where down the road your employees will be able to log into employee self-service, which is a website that they can go to. They can see their schedules. They can see all their good information that they need to have just for themselves. And then they can actually say, hey, I want to request time off. They hit request time off. They put in all their requests, and then the information they're requesting off will come over here. Now, you will notice that I do have a date range up at the top. The date range at the top is filtering when this employee wants to be off. So you'll notice that my employee submitted this morning. They submitted a request that looks like they want the entire week of Christmas off. So what I could do is, pretending that it's maybe September or October, I'm being proactive about my schedule, I could filter this to just be the month of December. I'm trying to make sure that I have the month of December covered. Scroll down a little bit here to December. There we go. And then as you can see, my request is still sitting here, even though I filtered this to be December, because it's looking at the days they're trying to get off. So when you're using this, you can filter this on a monthly basis, a biweekly basis, whatever it may be, to make sure that you are encompassing the requests that do need to be handled at that given time. Now from here, you'll notice that you can load photos of your staff members. You'll see the employee's name, a breakdown of the facility, position, the day they submitted that request. So sometimes it's a first come, first serve scenario. When they requested the days, this is an extended date range. If there was any overlap of these days, maybe some were pending, some not, it would show us that overlap, the reason the employee requested, and then of course the status of this request. Now you could come in, being that today is February, you could come in and say, hey, knowing that they're probably going to have that accrued balance by the time of Christmas, let me go ahead and hit actions and hit the approve button. So you could do that if you wanted to. You could just approve it or deny it. Either one will prompt you to put in some notes. So if it is a denial, you could put in the reason why. You could review the individual schedule prior to going in, and then you also could be able to review their accrual balance prior to going in. Now, I know that some facilities do have it where it is a true accrual. You only get a certain amount each pay period, and it has to build up to this. So that is an option that you could do some calculations prior to, but you do have the opportunity to make an executive decision, an educated decision, by having these few options before you do the approval or denial. Now, if you wanted to, you could find replacements for the shifts. So you could hit the plus button right beside the employee's name. And what it's going to do is going to give you a detail about every single day that this employee has requested off. Now, you'll notice that they did request off the 22nd through the 28th. I have the days through here, but you'll actually notice I have 2 pages worth of days worth of information. So if I click the 2, it will take me over there. Now, there is one thing I do want to notate here. You may notice I requested up through the 28th, but I've only got through the 27th here. My employee is not scheduled for the 28th. When they put in that request, they knew they were not on the schedule for the 28th. So it's going to only intuitively ask for the days off that they are currently scheduled for. So when you do have staff that you're working with, and this is going to be an option, just let them know that they need to keep an eye as they get closer to PTO time. You'll always see this time requested here. You just need to let them know as they get closer to make sure that if the schedule changes on them, that they do come in and ask for that additional day off, because it may sneak in there without it knowing. Now, that request will sit as pending and will eventually pop up with the PTO request. But if you're already processed December, there may be a day in limbo. So there does going to have to be a little communication between scheduling and your staff to make sure that if you guys have a policy about, hey, I need your time off request by the 15th of the month prior, then you need to have the time off request by the 15th of the month prior, but you also need to have your schedule available to them as well, so they know if they're supposed to be working or not. So it's kind of going to be a hand-in-hand situation about communication between scheduling and the staff when you are asking for time off. And that also works if you're going to continue doing it manual with form requests. Same situation. You should always have the schedule available so they can make an educated decision themselves to make it easier for you to get those requests processed. Now, when you are working with each day, it will show you the day, the shift that they are requesting off. The absence code is pre-filled from what they selected, but can be changed from the supervisor or manager that's approving it. It will be changeable to any code that you wish to put. It will show the accrual balance, and then from there you have an option to find replacement. Do you have to find a replacement at the moment that you're trying to approve this? Answer to that is no. You could just go to actions, approve, and then guess what's going to happen is the week of Christmas, you're now going to have 6 different shifts that need to be filled, and you're going to have to probably do it a little bit more manually or a little bit more like you're used to doing than finding them in advance. But if you wanted to, you just hit find replacement. The screen is almost identical to what you guys are getting in version 5 right now with replacement. It will list anybody that is available to work Sydney's position on that day during that shift. So it's going to give you all that information. Once again, absence code that can be changed. And then you'll have an option for columns. Columns is going to give you the opportunity, as long as your security rights allow, to view the specific position, department, total worked hours, scheduled hours, projected hours. If you have access to see pay rates, you can make a very educated decision on cost effectiveness, and then contact information. So after you pick and choose, you'll see the different columns, and then you can make an executive decision on who's going to pick it up. You select the employee's name. There's Nathan. Nathan's going to pick this one up for me. I hit the replace button. Nathan is now under my replacement button. All I have to do is hit the check mark, and I'm good to go on that day. And I could process the rest of the days for replacement and then hit the actions and approve. Now, the question is that with the 6-2 for Nathan, what happened with Nathan? Nathan just got scheduled. By me hitting that check mark, Nathan is now on the schedule for the 27th. PTO code is tentatively waiting for Sydney. And I say tentative because you still need to come in and approve the process. So once you have come in, and whether you've decided to find replacements or not, these absence codes are going to be sitting in limbo until you do the approval. So if I'm just going to cover just that one day and then come in and finish doing the rest of the approvals, I just hit the approve button. Soup approved, hit approve, and then now I've only got 5 days I've got to worry about instead of 6. So you don't have to go and fulfill all replacements. You don't have to do any of them if you don't want to, or if you just do one or two and then wait till the other days, that's totally fine as well. But that is a process that you could utilize in the system now with your review leave request set up. With that being said, because we did go over both those options, any questions about the leave request menus in total for both those options? All right.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are we still going to get an email? Like when the PTO requests are put in, will there still be an email sent to the supervisor?
Correct. That'll still be the same process. Right now, you guys have it where they put the PTO request in, and it just, you guys have that little gray screen that just pops up. We've just made the gray screen a lot prettier for you. Process is still going to be the same as it pertains to notifications going out to those approved supervisors saying, hey, you've got something sitting in here that you need to take care of. And always as a reminder, you could always come into the primary dashboard and it's going to be one of the first things you see as well. So if you happen to overlook that email, you won't miss it at all because you'll see it on this screen. And then the first screen that we did go to with the console, you'll see it on that screen as well with the donut charts. Remember, there's that little square underneath each little circle that has a PTO request option under that as well. So technically, you can see it almost in 4 different places, plus you'll get the email sent to you. So we're trying to make sure you guys don't miss it at all is the point of it. But yeah, sure, you'll still get your email.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question. All right, the next button that I'm going to go into is going to be the one with the little building. I know not all of you may have this option as it pertains to agency staff, but I know that a couple of them did pop up last time, so we are going to talk about with the agency staff. With agency, if you have agency employees, that also could be therapy workers. That also could be a physician that's visiting in-house. Any of those options that partake under agency, you have 2 options. First one that I'm going to talk about is manage agency. The reason I'm going to talk about this one first is the reason it's there is because it needs to be done first, and then you'll spend most of your time in the ad agency, but that's why it's listed this way. So under manage agency,
Dennis,
yes.
Excuse me, you can skip over the manage agency because Doty's the one that adds the agency companies.
Okay.
So
not a problem. So for everybody on the call, don't worry about the little building. Just talk to Doty if you guys have agency problems. Now, is she going to be adding the agency employees as well, you said?
no, they add them if they have the security role as PBJ administrator, they add the agency employees.
Okay, perfect. So if your role is going to be reporting for PBJ, under agency, just go into add agency employee. From there, what Doty has built for you, and I'm going to go ahead and pull one up. What Doty has built for you is going to be listed under your agency. So you just start typing whatever the agency is that employee is coming from. From there, you'll put in the last name, the first name, the organization level, the department, the position they worked, their start date, email for the employee if you wish. It will actually send them their time information to their email, work date, shift they worked, and then the unit. Once you've put in that information, you hit the add button. It will put them into the system like a normal employee. And I say like a normal employee, we'll be able to process them through. You can assign them to a time clock. You can let them clock in and out like everybody else. We'll track all of their hours, and their information will go all the way through time and attendance up to the point of, okay, now I need to take this file and send it to payroll. It's not going to pay them. It's not going to take their name and put it to payroll at all. Payroll will never even see their information, but you will have them in the system for reporting functionality as it pertains to PBJ. You also can get a very nice clean time card to reconcile your invoices with these staffing agencies. So it is a good opportunity to professionalize the process, and it helps the employee feel like they're a part of the team. So sometimes agency employees feel a little left out because they know that they're not part of the group. So it does help them feel like they're part of the normal process. They still follow all the rules that you guys have in-house. So business as usual for them. We just got to get them into the system. And the only way to get them into the system is Doty's going to build your staff, your agency group, and then you put your staffed employee into the system. And then from there, they process through like everybody else. But fairly simplistic process, but the employee does have to be placed in the system this way so we can track them. Number one reason it's being done is for PBJ, but I do try to find the most out of every feature. And I will tell you, it will help professionalize the process because right now a lot of agencies utilize paper sheets or handwritten forms or pictures of time cards for reconciliation purposes. This just cleans up the process a lot better and helps for reporting internally as well for cost. So with that being said, for those of you that are in charge of PBJ, any questions just to get the employee into the system? All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up that slide bar, and I want to talk about the meat and potatoes of the system, and that's going to be down towards the next menu, which is the main schedule menu. Now, with the main schedule menu, this is going to be where you can actually view your primary master schedule and then do some more administrative function and processing on a more automated basis. Now, the first screen, master schedule. Right now in version 5, you guys have a master schedule. Same terminology, same process, almost everything is identical. Now, when you guys come into the system, the only thing that's really different visually, other than the color scheme, is that the dates that you normally have on the right-hand side of your screen have now just shifted over here. So up in the right-hand corner of version 5, you have a current date range and a next date range of 4 weeks, and then you have a little thing that you can change the dates on top. That's just over on the left-hand side now. That's the only thing that's different as it pertains to dates. The dates are still 4 weeks. Nothing's changed about that at all. The option to open this calendar up will help you pick your dates a little bit quicker. And you will notice that you have a closed parentheses that's blue, and then you'll have an open parentheses that's orange. That, of course, is going to show you the indication of where the 4 weeks starts and where the 4 weeks is going to end for you. So when you are going in and picking your dates range that you're trying to process, that's how you can pick them very easily by utilizing the scroll of the month and then picking the appropriate day. Or you can just click the arrow and it will take you to the next 4 week cycle or take you to the previous 4 week cycle. Now everybody is listed still still by last name and then by position, and you can break this down to be seniority if you need to. Now currently in version 5, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of your master schedule, there's a little report that I like to call the Skittles Rainbow Report. It's got a bunch of different rows and a bunch of different colors. That report is going to be your total rows. The total rows are listed here for you, and technically you can now scroll your master schedule without those total rows going anywhere. They will stay with you. If you don't need to use those total rows, just uncheck that box and the total rows go away and they go all the way to the bottom where they've always been. That's the only thing that's really visually going to be different to you, is that those total rows are currently pinned, but you can't unpin them if you don't want to look at them. Now, if your staff are utilizing secondary positions, you can separate anybody out that does have a secondary position assigned to them. And then down below, it will show the employee's name, position, default home shift, and you do have options for additional columns. If you still want to look at seniority date, termination date, or average weekly hours, you can still see those listed as well if you want to add those in. Another thing that we have changed for you, giving you the option to do, is that currently in version 5, when you're looking at your master schedule, you'll see everything by unit code. And that's all you ever see is the unit code. You can now change that. If you want to look at just the time frame, if you want to look at the time frame and the unit code, just select the option, hit the apply button, and it will apply that change in there for you. Those applied changes will stay with your profile. So if Anita wanted to come in and look at shift and unit together, she could see that. If Dodie wanted to come in and look at just unit, that's all Dodie's going to see. So when you are adjusting with your little cogwheel or gear, those are personalized settings just for the user that is signed in, and those settings should stick with that user sign in. So every time that you log in from anywhere, it should always come up with that same view option. Now down below with the totals, these are the same totals that you get prior. So you will see total hours that you want scheduled, your PAR or your ideal schedule total, how many open shifts you have or how many you don't have, difference of your total hours, your census numbers, your PPD calculation, which is a scheduled PPD, and then last but not least, your actual PPD, which is time and attendance coming in and giving us your total hours. Same information we could have gotten on 4 other screens, but if this has been the process for you, they're still here. You're still going to be able to see your totals here on not only a given day, but even proactively looking into the future, you can still see future data as well. Now, under each given day, It does list the employees that are supposed to be working for you, and you still get the color coding of anybody that's approaching overtime, if they're working a double for you, if they have a constraint applied to them, the color coding's still going to stay. You will need to make a change to an effective day. You just click on that one day. Here's Sydney here on today's date. Click on that one day, and it will pull up the daily schedule screen. Right now, it's just a little gray pop-up window. It will pop you up to a new screen. You can still come in and change position if they work multiple positions for you. Very important, especially for PBJ, if you do have anybody that works multiple positions, to mark the appropriate position. Change the shift. Nothing's changed about that at all. You can still change the unit. If you have the superior rights to say, hey, I'm going to let you come in at 6:30 instead of 6, you can still change the actual start or end time. You also have the option under the pencil to remove the employee, to replace them. It's the same way that we went in the replacement earlier. You just hit the OK button and it will bring up a new replacement screen. The only difference is now you pick the code. It's not pre-filled for you of how that employee is going to be absent. Just remember that you guys do have a no-call, no-show code. So if you're not using it, you start to use it, because most facilities have a rule that if you're no-call, no-show enough, you're no employed. But if I'm not tracking it, I don't know if you're no-call, no-show. So make sure you are utilizing all codes, paid or unpaid, that are applicable for that change that are taking effect on the schedule. You also have the option under the pencil to add constraints still. So whatever constraints you currently have in the system, on-call, orientation, in-service, light duty, manager on duty, pickup, whatever it may be, make sure you apply that constraint code. You also can just mark the employee absent. Maybe the employee is going to be absent, but you're not going to replace them with anybody else. You can mark them with absent. You do have the option, this is more for your union employees, but adding latenesses to an employee, the system's automatically going to calculate for you, but if you need to manually add it, you can. Pre-scheduled OT, and then a partial absence situation. When you hit add partial absence, it will ask you for the absence code, how many hours are you allowing, and then do you want to attach it to the start or to the end of the shift? So if I say this employee is leaving early, they just got an unfortunate phone call about bereavement, so they're leaving early, it's going to be 4 hours, and I'm going to flip it over to the end. They got called right at 10. It'll apply it from the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So from 6 to 10, they were working, and then from 10 to 2, I know that there's going to be 4 hours of bereavement. Everything will pass appropriately over to the time card and be processed as it needs to be. Now, next to that, you do have an option to add notes. I always say if you're changing a unit or changing a shift on somebody, that's a normal scheduling function. That's your job of a scheduling, is to go in and make appropriate changes when necessary. But if you are going to change somebody from a 6 to a 6:30, if you are going to add in a partial absence or just mark somebody as absent, always come in and add a note. It's always a good process to add a note, just to have a little bit of coverage on the administration side to say, this is the reason why I'm making such a significant change to the schedule.
Dennis, I have a question related to the partial absence.
Yes.
If it's right now we can put it in the middle of the shift. If it is in the middle of the shift, would we have to create another shift?
You are most definitely correct. You would have to create another shift to put it in the middle.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
No problem. And I'll use that as an example. So let's say that this employee was, and let me hit discard on this to go back to the normal. So this employee is normally scheduled from 6 to 2, and they may be picking up some additional hours, or I may need to come in and make an adjustment just in between this. So from 10 to 12, they're going to take 2 hours off for whatever reason. What I may need to do is come in here, hit this to be a 10 a.m. I would then, oops, shouldn't have done that. I jumped the gun on that. Change that to be a 10 a.m. They're going to leave at 10 a.m. And then I can hit the save button, and then I can come over here, apply the 6 to 2 again. It's going to be an overlap, or I would need to come in and manually add in the time frame of the 10 a.m. And then process it through, and then put the partial absence on one of those two. So there is that opportunity. Or if you needed to, you could just have the employee clock out, put notes into the system, and then somebody could catch that in time and attendance to apply the rest of the absence in time and attendance. You do have the option, and we'll go over that in time and attendance. You do have the option to actually put in the actual start and end time if it's mid-shift. So the reason we normally don't allow it to happen in the middle anymore, that you do now, is because some of those situations where it happened in the middle, it wasn't a predetermined situation. It kind of happened on that day or going into the next day that we found out about it. So that is something that we could go into time and attendance and change. And Anita, to that statement in question, I'm actually making a note on the time and attendance session to actually show you an example of that one, absent mid-shift. That way we can go over that process. But most often, if it's predetermined, it's going to be before or after the shift. Most people normally don't let people leave in the middle of the shift. But if it is something middle shift, we can make that application in time and attendance. It's a little bit easier than having to come in here and do doubles and kind of cut the shifts up a little bit if we don't need to do that. If you are going to add a double onto somebody, it will allow you to apply the double. But just remember, if you have an overlap situation, it will let the mandatory or primary shift come in first, and then the secondary comes into play. So if you have a situation where, let me hit this let's do 6 to 6. Hit save on that. Oh, I think I broke it. There we go. 6 to 6. And if I wanted to come in here and apply this to be a 2 to 10. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and I want this employee to work from 2 to 10 somewhere else. The second I hit 2 to 10, it's going to tell me that the shift being added will be adjusted to remove the overlap. So we can all assume what time that second shift is going to start at 6 p.m. So that's a scenario where we do have an overlap. If the employee, let's say, for example, was going to be leaving early because of absence for whatever reason, we could come in and change some of these times around a little bit. But it does get specific, and you do have to do some customization as pertains to the start and end times that you do have, which will lead me to a good reason to add those notes in there because I'm getting that specific on an employee's day. But for the normal functionality, other than the partial absence that we're going to showcase on time and attendance for that next session, for the normal functionality of your daily changes, nothing's really different at all. Now, I will showcase to some of you that may have one frustration about version 5 is that you can't hit the back button in the system. You try to hit the back button on the browser, it kicks you out. There is no predetermined back button. You will notice I do have a back button here, but if I wanted to, I could just hit the back button, and it does take me to the previous screen that I was just working on, and I can go to the previous one before that as well, or put the forward button and puts me back to where I was just at. So just know that you do have that function, as well as up here at the top, you have what we like to call a little cookie crumb trail. So there's scheduler, there's master schedule, and then I, of course, was listed on the daily schedule. If I want to go straight back to the main scheduling console, I could just click Schedule Optimizer. It takes me back there. If I had multiple steps, I click on any step in that process, and it will take me back to that screen or that step. Now, with the main master schedule, you guys are currently going in. You're going under your little data set menu. You're going to your tool menu, and then you hit Generate Schedule one time every 4 weeks. Same process, it's just now listed under Actions. So you can delete your schedule out, you can back up your schedule, but the primary function of generating your schedule is identical. You just hit Generate Schedule, hit the OK button. It'll churn all of your employees' rotations and process it through. The only difference now is that, remember how we could put in time off requests for somebody up through the week of Christmas? So if I would have gone in and put in that week of Christmas for Sydney, I'm not going to think about that 10 months from now. But the system knows that you did it. And when you actually process and churn that generated report, it's going to give you a screen that looks like this. And what this screen is, it's going to be a little reminder that says, hey, you either already replaced this shift, so Sydney's not going to be showing up on these given days, or this person has an absence code on the day. As a reminder, you probably need to go and find a replacement for this. So even if the employee does put time off in advance and you didn't find any replacements 10 months from now, when you go to generate your Christmas or December schedule, or you're in the middle of October and you're doing your December schedule, it will give you a small little reminder report letting you know all the different manual changes that are currently out there, showing you that Sydney's not really going to be working on any of these days because you've got replacements sitting on these days, or you've got absence codes that are already sitting there and where you're going to need replacements to take place. So it will give you a little bit of a reminder to say, hey, these are the scheduling things that you probably want to take a look at just to confirm they're still going to be solid and in motion. But great option, because it currently don't have that right now in version 5. You kind of just generate and it overrides everything but absence codes. Now it automatically gives you a report and still sits through the schedule. If you have done a manual change in the system, it will still override the manual change. So make sure you generate your schedule first and then do your manual changes. But absence codes will always stick in the schedule no matter what, generated or not, as it pertains to the schedule function. Any questions about master schedule, daily changes, or any of the other options that you have off the screen? Good deal. Now, some of you may understand that in your main master schedule version 5, there is a filter. You do get a filter option. You've got to go over and hit options and hit options again, and then you get a gray filter bar at the top. It is just right here next to the cogwheel. It's a little slide bar filter. If you're trying to look for just a specific position, just a specific employee type, a certain shift group, or even just a specific unit, you can filter it. So if I want to look at just my LPNs, I can then from there hit the apply button, and it's going to filter out my whole master schedule to be just LPNs. Not looking at anybody else, but just my LPNs. And then from there, I can then filter out a specific shift group of day, evening, or night, or a specific unit if I wanted to. So I come in here and look at for people that just work the piece, hit the apply button, and it will filter out just the people working the piece unit in comparison to other ones. So just understanding you do have another filtering option on top of just scrolling through or using the cog wheel to get rid of certain functions in the system. The one thing about, yes.
Do you have any function in here for school activities that they can take time off in the day for up to 16 hours a year?
What do you mean? So would that be an absence code that you guys are currently applying?
Yes.
So when you come in, all you'd have to do is underneath the shift that they're working, you just come in, and when you hit mark absent, you guys probably already have a code in there of school time or whatever it may be. Just apply that code.
Okay.
Jody, we'll talk offline.
And can we update census from there?
The census numbers are, you have quite a few places to update them. In version 5 right now, you'd have the option on your master schedule. So if you didn't know it was there, you do have the option where it says census down below that you could click on that number and you can update your census from there. And it will be able to be processed. There's also 2 other places that you can easily do it. But yes, census numbers can still be updated, and it should be on a daily basis to make sure that it does match to your staffing model that's in the background and also gives you correct PPD totals for the day.
Okay, thank you.
No, not a problem. I did have one question pop up in chat, so let me look at it real quick. Janelle asked, if we have a new associate and we set up a rotation for them, can you just right click on their name and generate per person, just generate for the one person? Janelle, is an amazing question. If I could give you a high five right now, I would. So technically, yes. In version 5, it is requested that when you have new staff to make sure they get their rotation on them, and you do have the option to right click on their name and you can go in and hit generate schedule. Well, you may notice that when I hit right click, I don't get that menu option anymore. So Janelle, for you, right click menu now is just these blue little squares. So here's Nicole. Here's the little blue square. When you click on that blue square, it does give you the option to generate just the schedule. You can delete just that employee schedule. You can view the individual's schedule from here, and you can create a rotation from schedule. So if you have a per diem that's been working for you for a couple of weeks and that happens to be a good schedule for them, you can actually create a rotation off their working schedule if you want to. So your right click menu that you've had in version 5 is now just the little square that's blue on that person's line item. Just click on that, and that's where you actually get the function of generating that one individual schedule in comparison to everybody else's. That was a great question. I'm glad you brought that up, especially since we're recording the session. That actually leads me into my next situation, which is when you click on an employee's name, how do you actually get to the rotation tab? So when you click on the employee's name, just like in version 5, it will take you into their employee records. So let me actually put this back to where it was so we can see all of our staff. And I go to my test employee that I always like to use, Sydney. So I go up to Sydney here. I'm going to work with Sydney. Click on Sydney's name. This is now going to be your new employee record. Currently, when you bring up the employee record, it's a little index card size screen with a bunch of tabs that you may or may not have access to. Same situation here. Now, those of you that have been working with scheduling and time and attendance in version 5, you may notice that in version 5 Smart Links, Schedule Optimizer, you've got some scheduling tasks and tabs. And then if you go to time and attendance, the scheduling tabs are gone, and now you have time and attendance tabs. Everything that you are allowed access to, you'll now just see anywhere you click on the employee's name. It's not scheduling specific. It's not time and attendance specific. It is employee specific, and it will be based off of your security rights. So you'll be able to see the employee's information. We do have, just as an example, kind of what security rights can do to you. hey, I can see the employee's date of birth, but I can't see their year. So there are options where things maybe start out for you, or you just can't do anything with it at all. But the basic employee information, you'll still have contact information, emergency contacts. The license data fields are still going to be in there, so we want to make sure we keep that up to date. Still can track physicals and immunizations. You can still house documents on the employee's record. The employment section is kind of where a lot of the payroll information is being housed at. Position data, time clock assignment, accrual balances, I-9 information, employee self-service assignment. But then there actually is a subsection called schedule. And you can either scroll, I'm just going to click on it for time purpose. When you go to schedule, it will bring up the rotation piece. Now to set up rotations right now, you click on rotations, you go to change settings. When you go to change settings, you pick how many weeks you need, pick the primary shift, pick the primary unit. You apply the days because of the multiple columns that you have, and then you have to hit an edit button to make specific changes if you need to. It's a little bit easier to set up rotations. If you have a brand new employee or you're changing the rotation entirely for an employee, you just go to the little gear, click the gear. It will ask you how many weeks do you need. Right now, you guys are currently held to a little drop down of probably a 1, 2, 4, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, however many weeks. You just type in however many weeks you need. It's just a data field. If you need 10 weeks, type in 10, however many weeks you need. But remember, this is what the employee got hired to do. So if you are normal 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you only need the number 1 here. Even if you run 2-week schedules, you only need the number 1 listed. So just put however many weeks you need, pick the primary shift, pick the primary unit. You then hit the OK button. It'll ask you, are you sure? You hit yes. Instead of having to figure out, oh my gosh, what column, what day am I supposed to select? I'm confused, especially if you have multiple weeks. It'll actually tell you the date listed right here. It tells you that that's the current week. And then you just pencil in the days. And then once you've penciled in the days, you hit the Save Changes button. If you need to change that on Tuesday and Thursday, this employee doesn't work 6 to 2, they actually work a different shift, just hit that drop down for the shift, pick the new shift, pencil the new information in, hit the Save button. Change the unit if you need to. If you need to add in one of your constraints that you're utilizing, put in the constraint code. Pick and choose whatever you need to. Just make sure you hit Save Changes when you're done. You can even put doubles on these days if you need to, just by hitting the plus. Just make sure the double is not an overlap. It will not allow an overlap to take place. Overlaps should be kind of an anomaly or a manual change taking place. So if there is a situation where somebody does work a 6 to 2 and then it should kind of be an overlap almost into a different shift that you don't normally have, you would have to create that specific shift. But you guys already have a live database, and I doubt that's even taking place. There is one other option I do want to showcase to you. Let's say that you have an employee, they're about to go on maternity leave. They're going to be gone for at least 8 weeks. So you bring me on as an employee, and I'm going to be just filling in that person's position. I'm just going to be the replacements, like that person just never existed and I just took over. Right now, most of you are having to go in and set up an entire rotation on that brand new employee. You don't have to do that anymore. You can go to an option that's called Import Rotations. Import Rotations will allow you to look at everybody that currently works that same position. And then all you have to do is just click the person's name. Once you click the person's name, you hit OK at the bottom. What's happening is it's going to that employee's record, it's grabbing the rotation, and it's dumping it right onto Sydney's rotation for me. I didn't even have to go in and set anything up. I just know that Sydney is taking over Susan's rotation, and I just simply went to import, pick Susan's name, hit OK, and it brought Susan's rotation over here to me. Does Susan still have it on her screen? She does. But we'll mark her with LOA or whatever we're going to mark her with to make sure that she's not going to be utilized in the system. But from here, I could just utilize it as a simple copy. And then that way, all I have to do is then generate from this point moving forward. So Janelle, thank you for asking that question. Does anybody have any questions about the employee record or the adjustment of rotation? Or master schedule. We'll even go back to the master schedule since it kind of held with that. All right, perfect. Next screen we're going to go to is going to be called individual schedule. Now, you may have noticed that if I click the little blue square right here with the 3 little dots, where I kind of had shown Janelle, hey, this is where you can go and generate your schedule. I could just look at just Sydney. If I just know I need to work with Sydney, I could click just Sydney from here, and it will be a screen just about Sydney. But if I wanted to, I could just go to the individual schedule menu. And what's going to happen is it's going to pull everybody for me, same as the master schedule, and then pull the individual schedules over to the right-hand side. Rochelle just asked a question to me. When this goes live, will we have to go in and re-enter all the employee rotations, or will they remain? Rochelle, they all remain. All your employees' rotations will copy straight over to the system, so do not stress about that at all. They will all copy over. Great question. Glad I could clarify on that one for you. You guys will not have to reset up all of your rotations. They will copy over. But from here, individual schedule, you'll have all of your employees listed, and then their schedules over on the right-hand side. If you want to, just type in the first couple of characters, hit the magnifying glass. It does pull that employee. And then all you have to do is just click the employee, just like version 5. Don't click on their name because it does take you to their employee record. So just click on that line item to highlight it. Now we have Sydney's screen over here. I can hit the edit button and I can make changes to any given day. I can pick the position change. I can do shift change. I can do unit change. I can add a constraint if I want to, and I just pencil in those changes, just like you can do this on version 5 right now. Nothing's different about it. Pick the changes. I can delete days if I want to. I can add absence codes if I need to do a massive list of absence codes on given days. I can do that as well. Any day that's highlighted, you then hit the save button. Those highlighted days will go into a change effect on all screens that apply to those days. Projected hours report, your master schedule, everything that's going on in the system, it will pick up these changes the second you hit the save button. So just make sure those days are correct. If, oops, I didn't mean to click all that stuff, just hit cancel. It goes back to where it was. The 2 groups that use this the most are going to be your PRN staff and your dietary groups. Those are the 2 that are going to use this the most because usually that's the quickest turnaround of schedule changes on a daily or weekly basis. And it's a little bit easier than clicking on that one given day to make one change, hitting save, and going to somebody else and clicking one day to hit save. If I could save you 30 seconds on each employee that you touch on each day, it's going to be a lot of time saved by the end of the year. So individual schedule is a great tool for your per diem staff and those that are working departments where there is a high turnover rate because of temporary staff or students coming in. It's a great way to manage the schedules on a weekly or monthly basis if you need to. The date range that you have available are going to be the 4 weeks that you work with on your main master schedule. So just know you can change those 4 weeks to be whatever 4 weeks you need it to be. Any questions about individual schedule? All right. Now the next screen is our daily unit assignment screen. Remember I told you can go to the donut chart, click on the day and make an adjustment. If I go to that donut chart and click on that day, it takes me to my daily unit assignment screen. Now daily unit assignment is going to give you a screen that is going to give you the current day as well as all of the slots listed on your staffing model or your ideal schedule. You guys already have that information set up, so it will eventually pass over here when you guys go live. So all of your slots are going to be listed. You can click on the current day, or you can go to the next day if you wish, and it will show you the option to go in and fulfill or move people around. Now, since it was asked earlier about census, there is a census button at the top. Click on that, and guess what you get? Census screen. You update the census, hit the save button. You can click the back button, go right back in, and those census changes will go into effect. Now, why would you need to see census on here? In the right-hand corner, you will have the option for a little cogwheel. You can see total hours, PPD calculation, or total slots from what was built on the staffing model. So the census will help you see your PPD calculation. From there, it will show you all positions within the nursing department. And then the first PPD number you have is what you scheduled. The second is what the staffing model is looking for. So you do get a little bit of a comparison right off of this screen. From here, you will have 3 squares. I only have 2, but you will have 3 squares. The first one is going to be a plus. The plus means that's how many slots I have open that I need to have fulfilled in comparison to my staffing model. The little arrows means this is where I've overstaffed. So as you can see off of my screen, I've got 4 MDS units that need to be filled, and I haven't filled them. So I could hit the plus symbol on each one of those and add an employee in. I also have the option to move 7 employees because technically, and I'll be transparent, I should only have 2 CNAs in my piece unit. You guys notice I got a lot more than 2 CNAs in my piece unit. So before I go and start calling people, if these people that work the piece unit qualify to be CNAs in the MDS unit, why don't I just move them? Just reassign them for the day. So Destiny here, she's in the piece unit. She's overscheduled because I've already got 2 that are there. The system knows that I already have 2 there, and it's picking the rest of these because it's just how the system generated their schedules. Margaret and Jessica just first come, first serve. That's the only difference in what you get. These 2 got scheduled before everybody else did. So what I do is I can go to Destiny, and I can switch Destiny very quickly by hitting the up-down arrow. It'll then list out all of the openings that I have available. Up at the top, Destiny works 6 to 2 in the piece unit. She's overscheduled right now. I've got 5 6 to 2 shifts that I can move her to. So let me go ahead and put her into the MDS. I need somebody in MDS. Hit save. Magically, Destiny just filled in my MDS. She just got reassigned. All reports, everything in the system just got changed. And you'll notice that I was able to fulfill a shift and get somebody outside of that PAR back into PAR somewhere. Come in again, easily switch shift, reassign this person to MDS. Right now, you guys are going into the master schedule. You're clicking on a day. You're changing the unit. You're hitting the save button. You're hitting back to go back to the master schedule. And then, of course, there's load time on the screen. Now you can just do your daily changes from here. Click again, super simple. Fill in my MDS one more time. At least I've got 3 over there now. You could pick and choose however you need to have them assigned. So there's the plus of loading one, just like the same replacement screen. Just hit plus. There's my replacement screen. Pick the employee, hit add. That'll fulfill a slot for you. Now, if you have somebody, which is the 3rd square, it's going to be a square that says OT. Beside the employee's name, I don't have anybody that's OT today. So beside the employee's name, you will actually see they have a circle that pops up and it'll say OT in that circle. Those are people that are projected for overtime. Their little minus symbol will be highlighted for quick review to say, hey, I probably need to go ahead and send you home either this shift or another shift on a different day this week because you're projected for overtime. I'm trying to cut back on hours. I have enough staff to be able to take you and put you somewhere else, so I'm going to do that. So you do have that option for anybody that's OT. So you'll have the plus symbol, the arrows to switch people around, and then you'll have those that are OT. The way to work it is figure out what you're going to do with your OT first, then take those that can be moved around and move them around, and then fill in the rest of the gaps that you have. You might find out, if you do the math here, I technically only have 9 gaps in my system after I move these 4 people over here to this 13. I only have 9 shifts I need to fill, not 13. So that is an option that you do have when you are fulfilling your system. Now, I do like to showcase this screen as it pertains to mobile functionality. So if you are working with scheduling and it's the weekend and you're at home with your scheduling tools or whatever it may be, or you're a charge nurse or you're a DON and you're doing your rounds on the floor and you're allowed to have a mobile device on you, this screen can be looked at as a mobile application. My menu options disappeared. Give me 1 second here. Let's actually go to this way. Here we go. Back out of this screen. Uh-oh. Ah. Well, the menu options disappeared. I'll have to pull it up towards the end. But with the option, this is one of the mobile-friendly screens, so you could technically do the same functionality that you need to off of this screen that you can on a smartphone, an iPad, whatever it may be. All joking aside, if you're even in the bathroom and you have to use the restroom and you have to do a schedule change real quick, you technically, as long as you have access to the internet from where you're sitting at, you technically could maintain your staff from the bathroom. All joking aside, I know you guys get super stressed and you have a lot of things you have to do, but you technically can manage your staff on a daily basis. So with that being said, any questions about the daily unit assignment screen? I hate that my menu options disappeared, but I will try to get that worked out by time and attendance. All right. Next screen we're going to go to, as well as the rest of them, they're more for report functionality, but I do want to talk about OpenShift management. This is the last functional screen for scheduling. OpenShift management is going to be a screen where you can post your schedule out to your staff. Your staff could go into employee self-service. When they go into employee self-service, they can see those openings, and then from there, they can request those openings. So very much how they can go in and do their PTO request. In employee self-service, right next to that, it's going to be a button that says Open Shifts. When they see that button that says Open Shifts, it will give a list of all shifts that they could work. The system's intuitive enough to know it's not going to send an RN position to a CNA. So it is going to show you which ones they can work based on position. Once they go in, you'll actually see an indicator on the day that they've put in a request. I know I've got some openings on the 15th, so I could come in here. And as you can see, I had 30 openings on the 15th, and I've got somebody that did put a request in. So I click on that 15th, and everything on the 15th is over here on the right-hand side. You'll notice that my request came in for the MDS unit from 6 to 2. I have one request that came in, so I can open it up just like PTO request. It'll list who requested it, the day and time, their response to picking it up, and then the status of that request. Super simple to fulfill this. I could look at the individual schedule for that employee, I could deny it, or I could approve it. When I do the approval, it will automatically schedule that person for that shift. Just by me going to actions and approve, Sydney just got scheduled for the 15th from 6 to 2 in the MDS unit. So your staff will be able to have the function down the road to come in, put in that open shift request, and then you could process those requests. They are just requests. It doesn't mean they're going to get it. So if this is not a normal system process that you have now, think about a way to make it fair to them as it pertains to time frame of putting those requests in, first come, first serve, person with the least amount of hours, whatever it may be, because you don't want somebody to start pulling the favorite card on somebody else. Because then that causes a little bit of HR drama inside the facility. So come up with a good process if you don't already have one as it pertains to how are you going to approve them. And then from there, your staff will be able to have that function to go in and put that request in due time. But it is a nice process to help fulfill those gaps that you will eventually have on your schedule if you don't already have them already. Any questions about OpenShift management? Now, this schedule will have to be posted. There is a button to post. So if I was to go to the 4 weeks that haven't been posted yet, you will have to post this. So whenever your schedule is kind of set, your master schedule, you've generated it, you filled in what you could then go out and post your schedule. And that, of course, is going to be the time that you figure out, how do you tell your staff? Do you say, hey, it's going to be 2 weeks prior to the 4 week schedule. It's going to be the day before we go live with the 4 week schedule. And then from there, first come, first serve. So make sure you get on top of it. It's a lottery system, however you're going to work it, but just make sure you do talk to your staff about that process and what's going to work best for your facility and your group. Now from here, you do have 3 reports, very simplistic. The first one is posted schedules. This will just give you a list of all schedules that you've posted, the start and end of those cycles, and the user that posted it. That's all it's going to be for you. Just lets you know that the schedule was posted and when it actually got posted out to the staff. That's all this is going to give you. The one below that is going to be employee lateness. It's going to give you a report of a date range for a calendar year. So pick the date range that you need. It's going to give you the employee's name, position, facility breakout, their date that they were late, the time that they were late, and the total amount of time in minutes. Usually 2 things that you're looking at for performance review was competency of their job and did you come in when I asked you to come in? So attendance does have a big play in that. So if you need to get this for performance review or for a counseling or coaching session with a staff member, or you want to look just to see how your department's doing, you pick and choose. You have all the options in the world as it pertains to filtering, as with the dates, the names, the positions, and just looking at, say, hey, maybe 10 minutes I'm not worried about, but anything above 30 I'm really going to be stressing on. So you could have the option to come in and filter that if you need to as well. But great report to utilize as long as you use it. Sometimes people don't use reports and they do a lot more work than they need to, but we can't easily pull all latenesses that are marked on your staff members. Last but not least, schedule comments. You do have the option that wherever you did place the comments on the schedule, you can easily see them through here. I did have this one as an example because it is kind of one of those things that always happens. I had a situation with David. He called in. he needed to use a call out code. And it was the 4th time that he said his grandmother had passed away. So that way we have recordability that, whatever the reason is, we have a record of that, and then we can come in and track that through here. So if David's called out 17 times in the past 2 months, put in a comment as to the reason why he keeps calling out. If he's sick, if he keeps on running over nails in the parking lot, whatever the scenario is, that way we have recordability. Your HR team, your administration team, you as a supervisor or department head, not much you can do if you're not keeping track of the information. But as long as we keep track of it, there's a lot that we can do with this. So that is going to be whatever notes you've put on the schedule, where you put those add notes on the schedule changes. We'll be able to see all of those notes here. There is one more screen. It's the same screen I've already shown twice, but if you need to, you can go to the census screen on here, and it will pull up the area where you can update your census. Some of you have not asked yet, so I do want to showcase there is the option to copy to future dates. So if your census is fairly static and stays the same number most of the time, you could just come in here, put that date, put in your totals, and then hit copy to future dates, and it will copy that date moving forward. And then that way, if your census doesn't change for 3 or 4 days, there's nothing you really need to do. The number's already there. And then you can come in 4 days from now and then just update it from 4 days from now. So just make sure you do know that you do have that function to copy to future dates if you wish. Any questions about the scheduling aspect? Two more menus I'm going to show you, and then we'll be done.
I have a question on rotations.
Uh-huh.
Can you go back to that? I have employees that work in secondary positions on a consistent basis from their primary position. So how do you schedule the secondary position in the rotation?
Sure, I will show you that. Let me go to Sydney, because I know my Sydney has secondary positions. So when you go in, I'm going to go to schedule here. Here's my rotation. I'm just going to go to the little edit button. If you already have somebody that has a rotation set up and you need to make an edit, you can just go to the edit button. So right now, she primarily, that's her CNA, that's her primary position. You see CNA listed on every day, but let's say that she's a housekeeper on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I pick housekeeper, it pulls housekeeper shifts and housekeeper units. And then all I have to do is come in here and then just pencil in the housekeeper, and it pulls that position for me. Let's say that she works a double, and the first part of the day is one position and the second part is the other position. I could come in and mark CNA, and then we're going to pick the 2 to 10 so we don't have an overlap. And then I can pick the new unit. And then all I have to do is hit the plus symbol, and then that way I can actually get a double. So not only do I have a double, not only do I have separate time frames and separate units, but I can even have separate positions scheduled. Once it's done, I just hit save changes. And then once I've made those changes, it will ask if I want to go ahead and generate for this employee on the current schedule or wait until the next. You just hit the yes button, and it will put those changes into effect for you. So your secondary positions you currently have on your staff, they will be listed, and that's how you can go in and actually put those on there. For the person that just asked that question, do you currently have it set up on your version 5 that they're working the 2 positions, or are you doing manual changes?
No, I put them in rotations on the version 5.
Okay, I just want to make, some people don't know that you have that option in version 5, so it's good that you brought that question up. But you still have the option here. You just don't have to go to that little edit button and then start with position and then work your way backwards on that edit screen. You technically can just list it as simple as doing the other piece of it. You just got to make sure you mark the correct position. Once you pick the position, it will automatically allow for the shift in units that are available in that department that you're picking from if it's a different department. Good question. Good question.
If there's an employee that picks up a shift, are they notified after they pick it up, or does the supervisor have to notify them?
Are you talking about with the open shift request?
Yes.
Right now, because you guys don't have texting as a function, they will have to, whoever's making the change needs to have an open line of communication with that staff member. So if you tell me, hey, Dennis, can you pick up this shift from 2 to 10 next Friday? If I answer yes to you, then you say, okay, you're now on the schedule. That would be the notification to them. So if you are making changes without them knowing, the second that you make the change on the schedule, you need to let them know, as well as the supervisor needs to know. Because you guys don't have a texting functionality, it would initially, through the open shift request, it would initially send out a notice to them via text message. Now, I do want to foreshadow one thing. I hate that I'm recording it. It's going to be recorded, but it is what it is. There is an update coming to employee self-service over the next 2 weeks, almost about the time you guys are tentatively set to go live. Employee self-service is going to get a possible update to it. We're just doing the last beta testing. And at that time, we have asked for it to send out push notifications, which means when you do change their schedule, they could set up a notification through employee self-service that they would be notified that they actually are having schedule changes done. They are getting their time off, approval done and things like that. They won't have to go back into employee self-service. But you will have to at least leave that line of communication open with your staff members at this current time to make sure that they know that they are getting changes done to the schedule.
Okay, and then how do we print like your master schedule or even a schedule for an individual employee? Is it still the same?
It is still the same. I'm glad that you asked that because that was going to be my next area that I go to. So when I open up my menus, you will notice that there is a reports module. Same that you guys have now. Nothing is different about it at all. Literally, not one thing is different about this. You go to standard reports, you're going to have your silo of reports. So your schedule optimizer is still going to list your scheduling reports that you guys all have. These are the same exact reports. You want a 2-week schedule, you just click on 2-week schedule, you print it, and it's good to go. If you're looking for an employee individual schedule, go to individual schedule. It'll ask you for the start date and is there a specific employee that you're looking for, and it'll pull that individual schedule. View report and download report. If you hit download, it will automatically download into Excel for you. If you hit view report, you have the option to view the report first, and then it will give you the option, as you've had always, to go up in the upper right-hand corner, hit the little blue floppy disk, and you'll be able to pull it as a PDF, Excel, or Word. But the reports are still identical for you. Is this how you guys are currently pulling it now, is in the reports module?
I was currently going to like view individual schedule.
Oh, you're taking too many steps to begin with. If you could just go into your reports module now, even in version 5, go into your reports module. They're exactly the same reports. And you can just go to individual schedule from here and it will automatically pull it. And it looks a lot cleaner. And mine takes a lot longer than y'all's will. You'll 10 seconds and your reports automatically pull up for you. But I'm pulling Sydney's report right now. And here's Sydney's report. This is Sydney's schedule for the 4 weeks starting on February 10th. And I just go up here and push it out as a PDF and print it, and it'll show everything that I had on Sydney's schedule.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Great question. So great opportunity to pull your reports in the system. The last thing I want to show you is the little employee section. In version 5, the last button at the top that looks like the 2 people sitting in front of each other, that's going to be this area right here, employees. You'll have an option that says employee list. When you click on that, it brings you to a list of all of your employees that you have and their basic information. If you did not know that this existed in version 5, if you go click on that little button, you're going to have a square that says active employees, and it's going to give you an active employee count of however many active employees you have on that level. And then from there, it'll show you a report that looks like this. There is an option that says basic info, and when you click that option, same as I'm about to do, there will be a drop down of quick access reports. Nothing has changed about this at all. I can go in here and find people with expired licenses as long as I'm keeping my license date up to correct. There's all my employees listed alphabetically by last name. And then from there, I can see who's licensed and who's expired, who's not expired by pulling out of any of these reports that I need. So just know you do have that function available. Also, underneath the employee section, you'll have an area that's called employee communication. Now, under employee communication, you guys are not texting right now, but you still have 2 other options as it pertains to communication. When you're talking to them on the phone, and you can send a message to the time clock. Remember, I told you, you want to still have that line of communication open with them. Right now, texting is not available, but how can I do that? Call them on the phone. Send a message to the time clock. You do whatever you need to do to give them that information that they do need. This is 2 things for you. It's an audit trail, and it's also the option to do the function of actually logging the information. So through here, you'll notice the employee's name, the type of message it is. That's a clock message, a personal clock message. The message itself, the user ID. So all of your user IDs that you currently have now, they're going to be listed here, whoever put the message in, the date and time that you put the message in. And then from there, you'll see whether that clock message was read or not. And then if it was a call log, you'll just see the notes. What I could do is go to actions. And the first thing is log a phone call. All you have to do is just type in the employee's name, first couple of characters, pick the person's name. What day did you talk to them on? What number did you talk to them on? Talked about rotation change, will be going to nights starting 3/1. I put that in. We've had that conversation, hit save. And then from that point moving forward, you can make the whatever changes you need to have on the schedule from 3/1 moving forward, which means if there's confusion on 3/1 about why Natalie's coming in on the night, not the day, someone could fall back to this as it pertains to an audit report and see that there were notes about that took place here in the system. You also have the function to send a clock message. You can send a clock message to a specific employee, or we can do a time clock ticker. Specific employee, you are limited to 48 characters, so you got to keep it short and sweet. You just pick the employee's name, put in your note, hit the send button, and now when Sydney goes up to the time clock, Sydney will see that she has a message. She has to hit open new message to read the message. Remember, on the audit report, we could see whether that message was read or unread. So you'll actually see over here that it's unread. Well, I know that Sydney's been working for a couple of days. I could still see it's unread. At that point, I may need to find a different way of communicating with Sydney. But technically, she has to open the message at the time clock. You guys will end up with lines at the time clock, especially from 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sorry, from 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Usually is the longest line. So it is an opportunity that they could come back at any time to read the message. They don't have to do a function of clocking in and out to get to the message. The other one is the time clock ticker. That's where you can put in a message, put in the start time, put in the end time, pick the clock you're going to send it to. That message will scroll across for every single person, every single function they do at the time clock. So if you are an avid news watcher and they do the stock market throughout the day at the bottom, or you like sports and they do the sports scores at the bottom, it's the same thing. It'll scroll across for every person that goes up to the time clock, and they can actually see that message in there. New time and attendance system going live 3/1. Ask manager if you have any questions. Whatever you need to put in. Happy holidays. Thanks for working with us during the holidays. Lunch provided. See your manager. Whatever the situation may be, employee engagement, just giving out information specifically. It's a great tool because everybody is using the time clock. There's no question about it. If you use the time clock, it will always roll across through there as long as you set this up. So great tool to have as it pertains to time clock ticker, specific employee communication, and at minimum logging phone calls if you need to. Other than that, open floor. Any questions about anything pertaining to scheduling, primary dashboards, reports, or employee communication?
Dennis,
Yes.
Can you see if you could find the mobile and show the attendees what that looks like?
Yes, give me 1 second. Thank you for that. And I'm actually going to... And this is going to be the screen that, hey, I logged in. This is what I get to look at. If you are on a mobile device, whether that be app, or not an app, whether it be an Apple device or a cell phone or whatever it may be, as long as it's a smart device, you just go to the website. It's not an app that you download. It's just a website. I got to hit Control-Shift-C here. Oops, not that one. It will then take you to a screen that looks like this. Your menu options are still available to you. Open it up. So there's scheduling. Now, remember we went in initially under the dashboards. There was 4 menus. I only have 2, the console, the operational dashboard. So if I was to go into my console here, that's the one with the donut charts. Whether it's a weekly view or however it may be, there's my donut charts. I could click on the day that I need to go in and adjust the schedule. It takes me straight to that daily unit assignment screen. As you can see, I've got an opening. I've got 4 people I can move around if I want to. Same function, just click there. I can still make the changes. There's Yolanda. I'm going to put Yolanda in the sunny. Hit save. Yolanda's now moved, and you can make the adjustments all over the screen that you need to. So lots of function, but as I stated earlier, it will give you only the screens that are going to be available in mobile functionality. As you probably would assume, your master schedule is not mobile friendly. It is a massive, massive spreadsheet full of data. So that functionality is sitting in the background. And technically the master schedule when you generate, should be looking at a rotation of all of your staff, which are technically their shifts that they got hired to do. So filling in the gaps is what you should be doing on a normal basis, which is where the daily unit assignment comes in, because technically the gaps are going to be what's your staff's been, or what your management's been looking for out of as a staffing model that you guys already have set up. You scheduled to that, and then you had holes. So the holes can be filled on the daily unit assignment or movement. But just know you do have this function. This isn't on an iPhone that I'm looking at. I will say this is listed as an iPhone 6, 7, or 8. There was a client that I trained. They had an iPhone 4, which is a lot smaller, and it still was functionality. So just know you have that option. If you're on an iPad, of course, it looks a little more computer friendly, but just know you do have that functionality as pertains to mobile access. It's not an app. It's just mobile access via the website. I do have a question that popped up. Let's see here real quick. Rochelle asked, we have employees that work in 2 different locations. Can you show where you would go in and choose their work location? Currently have to switch screens to look at and access them. Rochelle, you would build secondary positions for them. So the secondary positions would be CNA Facility 1, CNA Facility 2, and it would be listed appropriately on the position. So the same thing that we had done earlier, where it was, I had the question about the people that did work secondary positions and rescheduling them. You would just make that change on the daily schedule. Let me actually back out of this view and I can show you real quick. Sydney was a prime example that I had, because she actually worked in 2 different facilities. You may not have caught it when I did it because I did it pretty quick. But if I
don't know. Oh, sorry. I don't know if that was very clear. What I meant to say, this is Tracy. Rochelle typed in the message, but I have activity staff at the Westwood building and I have activity staff at the Marywood building. And I used to have to switch screens to access people in different locations.
So the employees, as long as you have access to them. So let's go all the way to step 1 on this. This is more of an HR step first to step 1. So under employment and then positions, so let's say that I'm an activities coordinator for you at one facility and I'm an activities coordinator at the other facility at the same time. It's just a matter of where do you need me for that given day. You essentially would just have them listed through here. So I have right now, Sydney works at Celestial Care Center as a CNA. If I wanted to, she could also work at a different facility as a CNA. I would just have to have it listed that she's working at the other facility. So I would pick the other facility. Well, she works at Eternal Blossoms now in the nursing department as a CNA. And I would have that listed. Now I have 2 of the same position, but it's being driven by facility at that point. And then that way, when I'm on the master schedule, you said Westwood was one of them, correct?
Yep.
Okay, I want to use terms that you're used to. So let's say that I'm on Westwood's schedule. Even though I'm on Westwood's schedule, and that's my home department, if you went to the other facility, you would still see that employee listed on the other facility as well, because they have the position available to them. And I'm going to scroll down so you can see what it looks like. Joe Joseph here, he's got indicators beside his name. He's actually listed as a person that comes from somewhere else. Joe, he's an agency employee, but consider him someone that was originally Westwood, but now going to the other facility. Joe's always going to be listed at both facilities, in both master schedules, in both departments, but it's going to let you know where he's scheduled at. So if I'm scheduling him at Westwood, it's going to show him at Westwood and on the other schedule as well, but the other schedule will show that it's not for that facility, that it's for Westwood, and vice versa. And when you actually do your schedule changes, the position that is driven here, it shows the facility name. So you'll actually see activities, and then you'll see the different facility name, so you know where he's actually going at for that given day.
Dennis, I think I'll answer Tracy's question. So if you have employees that don't have secondary positions and you have some at Marywood and some at another location, you do need to go back up to the top in the right and select that location as you're doing today. So it will be listed the same way, and you'll have to go toggle between or go between the different locations in which you have staff.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions? And from my understanding, Anita and Dodie do have access to some PDFs and some information that they're going to actually put into your intraweb, if I'm not mistaken. So you guys can have access to some walkthroughs and some guides of the new system. They probably will also give you information about the tentative live date, and they're going to stay in contact with you about process moving forward and testing and things of that nature. If you guys do have any questions once we hang up, just make sure you send the questions over to them. If for some reason they can't answer them for you, I'm almost guaranteed the questions will come back our end. That way we can get an answer to you, because we want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the upgrade and the functionality of the system. I will tell you overall for the entire system, functionality is basically identical. A lot of the questions that you guys had, it was kind of the same stuff. Color schemes are a little bit different. Some of the functionality is in a different spot. But it is still the same functionality. You still generate your schedule, you still do your daily changes and things of that nature, and reports are all still the same as well. It's just sometimes it's in a different spot, and that's the uncomfortable motion, is trying to find out where that spot is. So we will help as much as possible. But there are going to be time and attendance sessions coming along as well. And this also is recorded, so you guys will have a copy of this as well if you need it. But other than that, if nobody has any other questions, I'll let you guys have some time back in your day. So enjoy it, use it wisely, have a blessed one, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.